Hi there. I've finished my block and I thought I would just do a little video to show you how to do the single crochet edging around the block. My block is not perfect, but I figured it's perfect enough for a blanket. I had lots of practice of single crochet in the back loop and lots of practice of really studying my gauge, which I have to confess I have not really done a lot of gauge studying with crochet. I usually just kind of go with it, block it out, etc. After I do this stitching around, I'm going to block, and I will do another video showing you how I'm going to block it. I decided I'm going to wet block it, and I'll explain more about that later. So my block looks pretty good when it's laying flat. When I pick it up, it's just a little bit more floppy. The single crochet around the outside is going to stabilize it a bit. So that will be helpful. It's also going to give us the same number of stitches around the outside of each block so that when we go to put it together, it'll be a lot easier. So the number of stitches we're to have on each edge is 41, and then we're putting 3 in each corner. The pattern recommends putting a stitch marker in each corner. So I have an assortment of removable stitch markers that are just like plastic safety pins. I don't have enough to do everything I want to do, so I just put them in 2 corners for right now. I've finished my last row, and I always just pull my loop out big when I put my crocheting away so that I don't lose stitches. So when you do the top and the bottom edge, getting your 41 should not be difficult because you're going to really be single crocheting in each stitch. The sides are a little trickier. We don't know how many rows we had. We just went to a size and not to a row count. So it's not going to be quite as easy to get the ratio going down the sides. So what I'm going to do to help with spacing my stitches out evenly is I'm going to fold the block in half and put a safety pin in my halfway point. And I can even take it another step. And I think this is helpful with the 12-inch block to really divide it up into quarters. So I'm going to do one more marker there, and then one more marker here. And since I'm doing 41, I should have about 10 in each of these sections as I go across. If you find that you're approaching a marker and you have more stitches to put in than you have spaces to put them, you can do 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. If you're approaching a marker and you have more stitches to stitch into than you need, you can skip a stitch. And so you want to evenly space any changes you make across the block. I have a little confession to make. My block is 39 stitches wide, so I think I must have miscounted on my chain, and it took me a while to realize that I had done that, and so I was not going to rip it out. I'm just going to block it to get 39, but that means I'm probably going to have a little bit of an issue when I single crochet across my top and bottom edges. So the first thing she has you do is chain 1, just as though you were going to do another row. For this, for the edging, we are not going to go through the back loop. We're going to go through the whole stitch, and that's just to kind of keep things uniform the whole way around. So I'm just going to start chaining across and counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. So since I divided it into fourths, I should get about 10 stitches per each section. I'm going to do a little fudging when I get to the middle to account for the fact that I know I only had 39 stitches. So I'm going to count another 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yay. So to account for the, like I said, for the fact I know I'm 1 stitch short, I'm going to put 2 in here. Just like sticking it in the middle of the row should be hopefully a little less obvious. So now I have 21 stitches, 10 and 11. So I have 21 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oops, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So everything's working out very nicely so far. So I am at 31 stitches and approaching the corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So here I need to kind of make a decision. I need 2 more stitches and then I have to put 3 in the corner. So I'm going to put another one right here. 9, 10. So I have my 10 stitches and now I'm going to put 3 in the corner. So I'm going to pull the marker out that was marking the corner and just going to kind of find a spot there to put 3 in. So there's 1, 2, 3. And then I will, I'll stick a pin in here for now, but I will come back and put a yarn marker in that center stitch after I finish, because I don't want to use up all of my stitch markers. Okay, so now I have to go down the side. I'll just pull my loop up a little bit, and I'm going to do the same thing to try to get these stitches evenly spaced. So I'll fold it in half, put a pin in there, and then fold each of these halves. Put a pin there. And a pin there. Okay. So if you watched Edie's video about finding a spot when you're along an edge to stick your stitches in, she recommends you'll find places like right here. There's a really good hole. That's just a stretched out stitch, and I have those all the way down the side. She recommends not stitching into those, even though it looks nice and easy to get into, because you're going to kind of accentuate the hole. So you want to try to like kind of push your yarn into places that are not going to create a big hole. So I just went in right here. So I didn't go all the way down there. I don't want to go that deep. I just kind of went in here where I can create enough of a gap for a stitch, but not make a big hole. So there's 1. So I'm not going to put 1 in there, but I'm going to kind of skip over to here. 2. And this looks like a good place here. 3. And just kind of go right in here. 4. So it's, since I'm not like going into stitches, I'm making way. It takes a little bit more pushing to get that. So that was 4, 5. And I'm going to skip over that big gap and put 1 here. 6. 7. 8. 9. So I may have been a little too gappy, not too bad. 10, obviously I don't want to put one right where that marker is, but so I think that's pretty good. So there's my 10 stitches there. I'm going to keep doing this down the edge. And if I get to a point where I don't really like the way it looks, I'll rip it out. It's not a big deal. It's, you know, it's not a whole lot of crocheting there. So I will tear it out. I'd say my stitches are not wonderful along the edge. I have to decide, is that good enough or do I want to rip it out? You'll also notice that the block is kind of flaring a little bit, but again, I'm going to block that out. You can't block out every imperfection, but this, because there's wool in this yarn, it will conform. When I wet it, it will shrink or stretch a little bit to help with my shape. So I'm going to keep going around as I have, and when I do the blocking video for you, I will also just show you how I'm going to end up this when I get to the end. When I get all the way around, I'm going to substitute these markers in the corners. I'm going to substitute a piece of yarn for those. And then when I get to the very last stitch, I will do a slip stitch to join my last single crochet with that first chain, and that's how I'll finish it off. And so, yeah, I'll get back to you with finishing it, with weaving the ends, and then with blocking. Happy crocheting! So I've finished single crocheting the whole way around the edge of my block. Again, you know, it's not lovely. Look at this corner sticking out. There's my mistake that I have to see all the time. I've put a yarn marker in each corner, and that's going to help us when it's time to sew the blocks together. So one thing about wool is that it blocks really nicely. When wool gets wet, it absorbs a lot of water and it will stretch and shrink nicely. So I have these kind of ripply edges, and I'm not going to worry about that yet. So I'm going to do one more thing here, which is I wanted to show you how to do that last stitch. So I've gone along that side. The sides were definitely a little more challenging than the ends, trying to decide which things to poke into there, and I needed some extra stitches, but even just kind of pulling on it, I can really make it look a lot better. So when we block it and when we sew it together, we're going to be able to kind of pull things in to look a little nicer. And again, it's a blanket. I'm not going to wear this out to the opera or anything. So I've done my last stitch, and to finish it off, you need to join with a slip stitch. So you kind of look at where you did your first stitch in here and poke into it and yarn over, and then you're going to pull through that and through the stitch on your hook, and that's a slip stitch. That's how you join. At this point, I'll cut my yarn, and to finish it, you just pull the yarn on through, and then that needs to be woven in. All right, so I have one more piece of yellow yarn to stick in that corner. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my block and I'm going to put it in a sink of water. I don't want ice cold, but just kind of room temperature type water. And I'm going to soak it for 20 minutes. The reason 20 minutes is because it takes a while for all the liquid to get into the wool. And after I do that, I will show you what I'm going to do to block it to try to get it into shape.